Thanks very much, Pradeep. Like Evan, I don't have any slides, but I don't want you to look at me, so I'll stand here. I see a number of my colleagues are here from NYSERDA, and I'm very glad for that, because what Evan said about getting technology validation in the clean tech space using non-dilutive financing is absolutely true, and that is very much what NYSERDA is here to do. We are a state agency that has a $650 million annual budget, a portion of which, a small portion of which actually is devoted to R&D, to do the kinds of things that all of these companies and your company, I think, can probably benefit from. So NYSERDA's been around since the 1970s. It's been 30 years. We've been doing this kind of R&D funding for a very long time. The vast majority of what we fund goes into small companies, and we don't restrict it to small companies, but that's the way it turns out. You know, universities aren't quite in our wheelhouse. Larger companies maybe not need our money, but small companies do, and we're very pleased to fund them. What we found over the years is that in addition to providing the kinds of financing we're talking about, we found a need to provide some additional business development support for the companies in our portfolio to help them think through and deal with the growing pains of starting a new company, encourage them to seek out and to meet up with customers early on, which I think many of you might know that some small companies are for whatever reason, reluctant. So we've introduced a number of programs which I manage, the Incubator program. In addition to Pradeep's incubator here, we have one in Buffalo, one in Rochester, one in Syracuse, one in New York City, and one at SUNY Stony Brook on Long Island. We also sponsor an entrepreneurial mentoring program called our Entrepreneurs in Residence program. There are more than 50 serial entrepreneurs in New York, not all of them in the clean tech space, but they've been there and done that, and they're available to work with companies who receive NYSERDA funding and who emerge from NYSERDA's incubators. We also support the pre-seed workshop and a number of other entrepreneurial development kinds of initiatives here in New York State in the area of clean energy. Before sitting down, because I don't think I'm necessarily going to get the chance to address this during the panel, I want to point out that there are funding opportunities currently available for your clean tech company. PON, that's Program Opportunity Notice, it's NYSERDA speak, it's our solicitation. PON 2244 in the power systems arena is open and available. The manager of that program is Jen Harvey, and she's back there. Jen, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. So she has some funding available. Another PON 2250 in the manufacturing process improvement, manufacturing process development arena is also available. Ashley Cox and Miriam Pai manage that program for us. So go and talk to them if you have good ideas that you need that funding. Thank you.
After the panel discussion session, we have a networking event. Obviously, all of you are welcome to attend. But I know who everybody's going to go after to talk to, because they're talking about the money that's available there. Our next speaker is going to be Steve DeLuca. Steve has spent over 20 years building and growing new product lines, organizations, and businesses in solar energy, environmental testing, and semiconductor equipment industries. At Label, Steve created a new business unit to produce the world's first portable GCMS, which is now a standard issue for emergency response teams around the world. When the company Inficon was spun out of its Label parent in 2000, he was based in Taiwan. He built the company's 5 Asian subsidiaries, and subsequently consolidated and ran the worldwide sales organization based in Germany in 2004. In 2006, Steve became CEO of Daystar Technologies, a publicly traded solar energy startup company. He refinanced the company with over 80 million in multiple raises, including PIPEs and registered offerings. In 2010, Steve co-founded Energy Materials Corporation, where he is leading the company in technology development efforts. Steve holds a PhD in applied chemistry from the Colorado School of Mines and an MBA from Syracuse University. Steve?
I like this. This way I can look at all of you. Is this on? No? Is it on now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. All right, so I want to start this. Thanks for that introduction, Pradeep, so I'm not going to talk about myself here. But I want to start it by being contretemps here. The first money you get is not necessarily the most expensive money, and I think quite often is not the most expensive money. The most expensive money, I think there's actually a formula, and the formula goes something like this. You take your burn rate, and you subtract that from how much cash you have in the bank. And as that number gets close to zero, your money gets more and more expensive. Your next raise gets more and more expensive, right? So the lesson is keep your burn rate as low as possible. Right? You don't need directors of every potential function you can think of when you're a startup. Right? You don't need your own in-house counsel. You don't need vice presidents for every idea you can think of. You really need to think about keeping that low. Right? I do believe debt is definitely more expensive than equity, but you have to be careful about things that look like equity but are actually debt. And so when the VCs come along, we're treating VCs like they're really bad, but they supply the money to make all these happen. So, but you have to be careful about what it says in the fine print. Okay, so you also have to remember that in order for a VC to change the CEO, they don't have to own 51% of the company. They just have to have control. And there's lots of ways to get control that don't necessarily equate to having majority shares in the company. So I'm trying to think of lots. I'm sure during this conversation there'll be lots more gems that I'll be able to throw out here, but I'm going to leave it with that, and hopefully we can get into the. Pradeep said we only have 3 minutes, so I think that's my 3 minutes.
You're the only one that kept the 3 minutes too, which is great. I told you guys 5 minutes and him only 3, right? Our next speaker has a host of information in him, of course, is Walt Robb. Dr. Walt Robb is a former GE Senior Vice President. He is presently a mentor, director, and angel investor to many Tech Valley startups. One of the things he told us when we were huddling before we got here was he actually brought in Jack Welch into GE. That's pretty impressive. We can blame him for those problems too. Walt was trained in chemical engineering at Penn State and the University of Illinois and joined GE Company's Atomic Power Lab from 1955 to 1956. He became a researcher at GE's research lab in 1956 and successively served in various capacities for GE in management, research, and development, retiring in 1992 as Senior Vice President for Corporate Research and Development and a member of the company's Corporate Executive Council. In 1993, Walt received the National Medal of Technology, the nation's highest technology honor, from President Clinton for his leadership in the development of medical diagnostic systems that have improved people's health and maintained U.S. global competitiveness. Presently, Walt also serves on the boards of Celgene Corporation and Mechanical Technology, Inc., both publicly traded companies. And Walt is also known as one of the angel investors